Okay, let me start this over so we can make it all official. The House Committee on Administration and Accounts will now come to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Wright.
Here.
Vice Chair McGaugh. Here. Representative Behringer. Present. Banger. Here. Billington. Cups. Griffith. Present. Johnson. Here. Van Scoy. Here. You have 7.
Okay, we have 7 present. Quorum has been established. At the Speaker of the House's request, we've been asked to review and evaluate the current House constituent management program that we have and the continuance of that, or is there needs to make changes. And so that's what we have been asked to do at this time. And so with that, I would like to have a brief overview, if I could, of our current system by Joy Ingleby, the Director of Information Systems. Joy, if you would come forward and please state your name and please present to us. And you need to fill out a witness form, by the way, everyone who will be speaking.
Did online.
All right, thank you. Oh, you're a computer person. I forgot. I'm old school, so anyway, thank you.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I would actually like to introduce some folks that have joined Joy today before she gives the overview. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so with us we have some of our, actually all of our application development team here. This is about half of our information systems division employees. So I will start over here on my right, your left, and we have Tim Fork, Ethan Strutton, Zach Fawcett, Donna Green, Jennifer Husty, Adam Ford, and then over here to my left and your right, we have Matthew Ross and Jamie Fork. And so I just wanted everyone to have the opportunity to meet the people who are making everything happen here in the House day after day. And CM is just one of the many programs that they have developed, written, and maintained. So thank you for your indulgence.
And thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Joy?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for this opportunity. I'm Joy Ingleby. I'm the Director of IT for the House. I appreciate this opportunity to describe some of our in-house built applications, especially constituent management. I'll kind of go over the history of how we got where we are and what it does, and then go into what the task force we formed last year did for revision-wise, and then end with kind of our change process, how we go through that. So long story short, in the long ago days, they had basically each district kind of maintained their own constituent management, and then that evolved as computers got better in the late 90s, and our information systems at the time would then get the data from individual counties and then they put an access database and then make a spreadsheet and give it out to the individual districts. As you can imagine, that was very cumbersome and time consuming. We needed a better way, so we kept modifying that. That worked for a little bit, but wasn't really fitting our needs. So then, fast forward a couple years, we tried an off-the-shelf product, and that, for a number of reasons, didn't really work well for us either. So in 2006, Matt Ross was on site, and he built the system that we are using currently. In 2015, it was built in VB.NET, which is a solid language. In 2015, we standardized it. We're a C# shop now, and it's basically an under-the-hood kind of overhaul. We rewrote it in C#, left how it looked, how it functioned, all of that alone, so really the users had no idea we had overhauled it. And then last year, we formed a task force to identify it really needed an overhaul for the users, too, at that point. So in 2022, we were asked to make a task force, which we did. We compiled a good selection of LAs and House staff, IT, and we had the training coordinator, a good representation of people that use it and had some input and ideas. And out of that, we were able to come up with the new release that we launched in the end of 2022. We had it finished about May-ish, but we wanted to delay it because we weren't updating the data at that time until we had all of the redistricting data loaded, and basically it was one giant push at the end of December for session changeover. So that's where we are at today. We had a few enhancements over the course of 2006 to 2022 where we added the ability to add attachments to issues, print mailing labels, excuse me, but nothing really overhauled until last year. And last year, some of the results of that task force were we left the recent searches up on the main search screen, so someone you're working with fairly often is always there. And then we gave them the ability to pin a constituent if this is a high priority person, or you're going to come back to this, but it's going to be a week or two and you want to leave them there, that kind of stuff. We simplified the query builder. That was always kind of a hard, we get a lot of help calls on that. How do I do this query so I can get the data for an export? So we simplified that, and then we gave them the ability to save those queries, which was huge because now somebody can go in and reuse a query which is changing the criteria that they need, not have to build it over and over. And with that save, we also allowed them to share it. So if they wanted to share it with, if they were mentoring another LA, or more importantly, they were sending it down to publications for a mailing, then they're looking at the same query because publications would have to try and recreate it. And if you had something off, then there's a data discrepancy and they're trying to figure out where they got off. But that's been well received so far. We also added the ability to include the member on every mailing. So if you're not in the criteria that you're trying to reach out, if you want to receive every mailing that goes to your district, you can just automatically default add yourself and you'll get that, so you'll see what's going out and when. We clarified adding a new member or a new constituent. We kind of grouped the fields together to make it flow better so it's quicker, easier. We changed where the printing label goes so you can get to it a lot faster. And we also added the ability to add a new issue. So if you're working with somebody and none of the default issues that you currently use work and you want to start a new one, you can do it from inside that screen pretty easily. And then we also made it more prominent to display the opt-out of bulk mailings option. That was a big ask of the task force. They wanted it a lot more clear that they could see that this person has opted out of bulk mailings and how they can do that to make sure that when that constituent calls or something, they can say, oh yes, you're identified as not receiving bulk mailings. On the front page, on the search page, we've added some shortcuts. A lot of it had to do with redistricting. We added a link to the member's district map just to make it a shortcut. And then we also added a find my rep kind of cheat like off of our homepage on the website. That way, if you're working with a constituent, you can't find them in constituent management, you could enter their address and it will tell them who their legislator is and what district they belong with. So you could say, sorry, looks like your district shifted and now you're with this representative, and you can forward them to the right person. Again, that was kind of driven by redistricting, but I think it'd be helpful for incoming new members. So we're just going to leave that there. And we also added the date of the latest SOS import. And so you can see when the most recent data was at. And we've added the constituent count for your district. So you can kind of see that at the bottom. That was just kind of neat. And then the last couple things we did was we added an activity report where the LAs can, or somebody can put a date range in, and we'll pull up all the constituents that they had dealt with. The idea kind of behind that was as the members heading home at the end of the week, they can pull it up and say, these are the people that called in case you encounter them or want to talk to them or something. Kind of give you a high list of that. And then we could also made it easier to print a constituent's record with their issues. So in case you asked for somebody and you wanted to take it home and I'm going to meet with this person, I'd like to see what they've called about. So that's what we've included. I'll kind of circle back around to the change process, and it's as simple as usually, this was a very formal one, but once we were in the task force, it turned into our normal, hey, let's throw ideas out and see what we can do. You know, one of our wise programmers says, ask for the moon and we'll tell you if we can reach it. So that's kind of our attitude when we go into development. And so we just got all these ideas and refined them, saw what we could do. Some of the ideas we fleshed out weren't really worth the time and overhaul that it would involve. So we kind of either deferred those or decided not to do those. But as you know, you pretty much catch me in the hallway and say, hey, this is a good idea. I get a lot of those. Or a lot of members go to the chief clerk or the assistant chief clerk and say, you know, hey, I think this would be a good idea. Can we do this? I can't tell you how many member suggested ideas and suggestions are in Amy to make it such a great chamber program. That's pretty much member driven. But other than that, it's very simple. We've got one ask there's been 4 trainings on this so far this year, and the training coordinator came to me last week and said, you know, I've heard from some feedback from my trainings that they want to see the statewide constituent count on that main screen too with the district one. I thought that was on there. So just that simple kind of ask. We're going to look into it and get that out there. We don't like to push anything out during a session week like this, so it'll be next week. But that's just an example of how we're here to take your feedback and make this work for you guys. So I'm happy to answer any questions if I didn't touch on something or more involved on that.
Does any of the members have questions? Representative Griffith.
To inquire.
Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's really good to see the team, too. For some of you I've never seen before. Some of you I've seen but had masks on. I didn't know who you were, so it's really good to see your face, though. One question, you just said that you had 4 trainings for this year. In those trainings, how many of our LAs participated in those, and if they did, how many of those participated more than once?
I honestly do not know that, but I can check with the training coordinator and find that for you and get that back to you.
I think that's a good question, because I think a lot of our LAs are not don't have access to that or don't have the training for it, and so they. I think that may be a reason why they're not using it as much as they can. So
Dana may be able to speak to that. I think, is that a Lacey program? Okay.
Thank you, Representative. So about 2 years ago, this committee put into place a policy change that requires all LAs to attend a constituent management training, new LAs within 30 days of initial hire. So the LAs that have come on since that time, that policy adjustment, have been required to attend a CM training. And those that have been here prior to that, I don't know that we required them to go back and take the training. So that might be something we might want to look at if we would want our legislator assistants to utilize, take advantage of a training of the new interface.
So at the end of the training, is there any kind of rubric, or is there a test that they pass, or is there some kind of proficiency that they need to have, or any expectations on that level?
I think we leave that to the LA. It's what they want to make out of it, and what kind of use and what their member may want them to use or not use as far as constituent management goes.
Okay, thank you.
Representative McGaugh.
To inquire. Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you. I, too, appreciate seeing the faces and putting names with people out there that have helped us and me specifically. Thank you so much. Sometimes I call from home, and you always take my calls. Thank you. Ms. Ingleby, I was wondering about the management user data and what it is that you derive from keeping those stats, and what you have learned from how many users are actually using the system.
So if I think I'm understanding your question, you're kind of asking how many access the system and okay, gotcha. We ran those numbers in, let's see here, about June or July. It was July, and they were at 5,300, I believe. And then we ran them again this morning, and it was a count of, and again, this is through the House portal that they credential through, or if they have accessed through their House PC or on the floor if you're signed in as yourself. And that total was about 6,051 through the Saturday, the 10th. Yeah, Sunday. Thank you. That's the login specific sessions, correct.
Okay, so that's a
So it's about
session, not
That would mean
hits.
correct. That means they have credentialed in and hit, if you're familiar with the portal or when you sign on, you have to hit the button to go to constituent management. And then that's how, and then they would have had to initiate a search. So that's about 6,000, a little over 6,000 through the 10th
All right,
for this
so,
year.
thank you. And drilling down further even than that, than the totals, is there a way, and I think I know the answer to this because I've got a copy of Exhibit 3 in front of me, in that you can actually tell which districts, not to name names, but which districts of the 163 districts that actually use the system and at what level. Do you know that number?
I do not know that number off the top of my head right now, but I can get that for you.
Well, thank you, but I think I had my eyes open to a shocking fact that it appears to me that a vast majority of the members, LAs, are not using it. And that bothered me in a way because, I mean, look at the people there that have developed this and you keep it active. And so along the lines of the training, is there anything that we can suggest to the members to suggest to their LAs that they use it? I mean, it's a good program, and if nothing else, to look up your constituents' addresses to mail them something.
I'd have to agree with that. I've seen that in action with some of the committee members here. They've seen the value of CM, and they've actually pushed for this. And I think a lot of these changes came because of that. And you're absolutely right. We have some. It's very heavy weighted. We have some super power users, and then it kind of trickles down from that. But yeah, we can probably do some more to promote the system, make it a little more out there for them. So, you know, like the new training for the new employees, that's been huge because it exposes them to them right away within their first 30 days. They know it's available to them, and they can see the value in it. Just if, like you said, nothing else, just to look up someone that's calling on the phone.
Right. Well, and I remember the freshman training, we, hit on it. You came, or your predecessor came and talked about it, and Dana always brings it up. But after that, I don't ever remember it being brought up to members as to, hey, don't forget we've got this over here that you could utilize. So, if the LAs aren't using it because they don't like it, that's one thing. But if they aren't using it because they don't know it's there to use and the members don't push them, then that's a whole nother thing, especially since it's free. Yes.
Thank you, Representative Vice Chair. Also, this is something I have not run the stats on, and I don't know if we have the data, but I do touch on that. I think I've touched on it to some communications I've sent out. But the passage of Clean Missouri had what I'm going to call a chilling effect on members' the desire to record some of this information within constituent management because of the concerns about sunshine requests and how that language, we're actually in court right now litigating and fighting for the right to keep our constituent case files closed because some, as you are well aware, some of your constituents will call in with very sensitive issues that they need help with. And so I do think that with the passage of Clean Missouri and in conversation with the administrator for the Missouri Senate, he has seen the same effect. So I think that's something that you might want to take into account. I know that depends, it varies district by district, but I do think that had an impact that's a unique set of language that was put in our Constitution just for us and the legislature. And I do think that has had some effect on members and their staff's desire to put to utilize some of these features.
I agree with your statement about the chilling effect, and it's still very concerning to me that people, my constituents, don't realize that what they leave on my message machine is also sunshineable, and it could be very detrimental to a lady in trouble, for example. The other thing I was going to state before I'll finish, sir, is that I do appreciate how you keep the records private. I know that most of you know I came in a special election that I replaced my son. So when I got here, I just thought that everything that he used and had would automatically become mine. And I was very surprised to find out that that wasn't the way it was. And I pretty much had to start over mid-year, midterm, almost the end of session, to come up with my own entries into my constituency. So where I thought that was unheard of or rude to me, now I understand that you have to do it that way. So thank you again. Thank you, Chair.
Representative Cups, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to ask a pretty pointed question, and this is not a canned question. And it's going to be blunt, because I got some calls from some other members that were like, "Hey, this system is trash. It's garbage. We need something better." And please be honest with us. I mean, we are the admin and account. Have you gotten complaints about the current system? And if so, can you walk us through maybe what those complaints are? And is that something we can remedy, or is that something that you think is not doable with our system? Just be pretty blunt with us if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Good question. Thank you. The old system, before the task force met, it definitely it needed a facelift, and it was clunky, and again, it was old. It was built with old, look and feel. So the task force really took it to heart, and we modernized the look of it. We made it simpler to use, and overall, we enhanced the user experience, basically. So as far as your question about complaints and issues with the system as it is now, I have not heard those. I've had suggestions as far as, like I said, to add the statewide constituent count on the bottom, but nothing really. Most of the calls we get is, where is this now and how do I do this? And once you show them, they're off to the races. So, but to my knowledge, now again, people go to the chief clerk and ask questions to her or complain. So she might have heard something, but it has not gotten to our level, which she knows she'll tell us right away.
Was your question, if I could clarify, was it about members? Because you said you'd received complaints from members.
Yeah, no, well, I had people that called and told me that, and I not to be this guy, but I question the legitimacy of whether or not they were using the system, if those complaints were warranted, were valid. I'm just trying to be real. I'm trying to be unbiased here, and so. And I know my personality is a little different. If I thought a system was garbage, I would probably tell our chief clerk. I would say, hey, we need to do something different. And I hope that you can feel comfortable enough with us to be honest with us. Because I also hope that if there are little complaints, that you would be honest with us as to whether or not maybe those could be addressed.
So, but thank you for clarifying. I receive complaints about a lot of issues from members from both sides of the aisle, and we try to address those. We've had working groups on publications, we've had an LA working group, we had the CM working group for LA suggestions on how to improve the system. But have any members come to me and complained? Not a single one.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Van Schoik.
To inquire.
Proceed.
Couple questions about data. I'm receiving a lot of telephone calls about data and emails. Where is your data acquired from for our constituents, and how is it stored? Where is it stored?
Representative, if I may, we get a load about every 4 to 6 weeks from the Secretary of State's office, and actually, since they went to a digital format for us, that's been consistent about the first week of every month. And you'll see that little ticker change on constituent management of our last upload. So we get that directly from them. We load it. It usually takes about 2.5 hours, so we'll do it on a Friday night, overnight, over hours, so we don't interrupt anybody using it. And then from that, basically whatever the LA or the member enters, that's where we get our data. So if someone calls and interacts with you, and that's how we'll get additional contact information or notes that they want to put in there.
Okay. When a member uses the system and puts something in about a constituent has an issue, where is that data stored? How is that kept?
That is stored in our SQL Server databases on site here, behind 2 locked doors, physical doors, and it is on our servers.
Who has access to those servers?
Physically or remotely, or
in any way.
Anyone with administrative privileges, and then IT staff that has access to the key codes.
They're the only people who have access to that data.
Authorized personnel, correct.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Representative, go right ahead.
To inquire.
Proceed.
Hi. So in terms of feedback and the task force and members who have questions or possible complaints, on average, how long would it take you to update the system based on the feedback you might receive from members or from LAs or from your task force?
That's kind of a tricky question. It depends on how involved that is. If it's a super simple fix, like we're going to add the constituent count, that's going to take no time to really get that in and out. If it's something a lot more involved, like some of these changes, when we added the recent searches and how to clear those and prioritize people, that took probably 2 to 3 weeks to get it worked in. We currently have 65 applications in production that we support, and of those, 28 we are actually working on with some small changes at this time. And then we have an additional 15 in the hopper that are brand new. They're either in progress or they're in the queue to move up to be worked on. So it's also a matter of where it falls. A lot of times, if it comes from the chief clerk, it moves it up quite often. That's kind of sets our priority tone. But it depends on how invasive the change is. If it's just cosmetic, or if it's really involved and we're going to have to do some database back end things like that, it could take us a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, with that, I think we appreciate your testimony, and with that, we'll open it up to anyone else who may have a discussion or would like to make a presentation. Anyone else? No other comments? Okay. Yes, come on up. Please fill out the witness form. And state your
I'll take
name.
one of these and I'll hand it back.
And state your name, please.
Yep. My name's Jason Moore, St. Louis County. I'm actually part of the St. Louis County Republican Central Committee, but I'm not here on behalf of them. I'm strictly a private citizen. I've been in IT for north of 25 years now, so I really appreciate what you guys do. You guys have a thankless job, working holidays, working obscene amounts of hours. So I appreciate you guys. I guess my question would be, why now are we talking about this? We're off session. Why can't this wait when we can actually get more eyes and understanding of it? I heard about this late last night, and I felt it important enough to come here just to talk about it, because I'm that concerned. There's a couple of really brilliant points with, if the current system's not really being used fully, why is that? It should be a standard practice, I would assume. And if not everybody's using it, why do we need a new system altogether? Rip and replace. And then these guys are going to be tasked with, if we bring in a new system, this whatever the one that's being discussed, you've got to import all of that data over to them. And then it becomes their data, per se, that we then have to worry about that, how are they managing it. Right now, all of our data is on-prem, so it's locked securely, it sounds like, and only very few people have access to it. How's that assurance with it when this gets published to, was a fiscal note? I think that's one being discussed. What's going to happen with that data with them? And I know one of their big selling points is AI, so that means they're a data provider. Well, in order for their AI to be built out effectively, it has to scrape billions upon billions upon billions of data points to get educated to be useful. So what's going to happen with Missourians' data? My data, right? I don't want them doing that with my stuff. I don't want them doing it with my daughter's stuff, with my wife's stuff, my mom's stuff, anybody's, yours, right? Because they will technically own it because it will be on their servers. And because it's a software as a solution type of system, it's all cloud oriented. So it takes one mistake by one sysadmin on their side to potentially expose data. How do we know this? Look at Equifax, I think, had 2 instances over the past 5 years, 7 years, something like that, where somebody accidentally let one database server exposed, and that database server was exploited, and millions upon millions of private citizens' records were taken. And as a result, Equifax had to pay a load of money to the feds as recompense, along with providing credit monitoring that they would pay for. So there's, I think from an LA point of view, I don't know if there's a user experience lab that people can use. You know, you post these updates that then people can go use and then schedule time in so they can do that. And then you can prove out, does this look right? Does this operate right for what we need it for? But before we rip and replace like this, I mean, that's huge. And I do question, I legitimately question why we're doing this on behalf of the Speaker's office. Something doesn't feel right about it at all. And I took a half day. I worked this morning, drove out here from St. Louis County just to be here because I felt this was that darn important. And we should table this, if not completely and totally annihilate it, off the calendar now and into next session. Now is not the time. We already blew through $51 billion worth of our money in the latest budget. Why do we need to blow some more for something that doesn't sound like it's needed at all? So maybe some refinements with the current systems that we have right now. And I want our data protected here in the state of Missouri. Thank you so much. And I will fill this out.
Anyone have questions for this gentleman? Representative Cups.
Who is your current state rep?
Holly Jones,
Oh, yeah,
good person.
yeah, good person. I just wanted to thank you for, it's not a short trip. Traffic's not easy, and one thing that is very difficult for me sometimes is advocating to my own constituents. I'm far southwest, that sometimes a drive to the Capitol is worth 1,000 emails. And the reality is, I just wanted to personally thank you for taking that time to come here to interact with us, because it does mean something. A lot of times it's get up, speak your piece, and then go back and sit in the back of the room. But at least for this committee, I do believe it probably means something to us. To Representative Van Schoik's point about our data, I think there are some concerns there. I'm not saying that the system being proposed is malicious. I'm not insinuating that. I'm just saying that the concerns are real. And when folks like yourself come to us and voice that, it makes it kind of real for us. So thank you for making that trip.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. And we have to protect our stuff. We just have to.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Could we, anyone else be willing to come up and give their testimony? Please fill out the witness form and state your name.
Hi, my name is Bev Allen, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Warren County Republican Committee. We actually had our meeting last night, and so several of us had got some information on Sunday evening, and I was a couple minutes late, so I don't know what was discussed. There was no bill to read, so the information I had was that you were looking at a proposal to spend $800,000 to get a new system that would really be outsourcing it. And it kind of, well, actually, since term limits, I've been here longer than any of you, except for some of the LAs. We've been here about the same time. But I can remember, several years ago, we had a General Assembly that was fighting the Real ID. We stood up against that because we were very protective of people's privacy. And then we had, remember the concealed carry that got out of control, and it was shipped off to the federal government. And that was a big hoopla. And we had some committee hearings, and I don't think anything was done. And then we had the voter rolls. We were part of ERIC, and I think our Secretary of State has removed us from that, but we gave our voter information to another entity outside of Missouri, so they have our information. And then just a couple of years ago, we created a database for prescription drugs, so we have a new set of people's information out there for other people to see. And back in 2014, 75% of the Missourians who voted to protect their electronic data. And 75% on a vote is pretty high. And that was, of course, that was 9 years ago, but I don't think people are any more trusting of the protection of their privacy and the protection of it. So I don't. It sounds like from what I heard, I'm not a technical person, but it sounds like we have a system that's working pretty good, and not even being accessed by many of the people in this side of the building that could do that. So I don't know. And the committee, the Warren County Republican Committee, thinks it's not a wise thing to be spending $800,000 on something that would even maybe subject our data to eyes outside of Missouri. So we would reject that and think that there's a lot more information and investigation should be gotten before we make any decisions like that.
Well, in fairness, it's not 800,000, it's 388 per year, but we're committed,
Okay.
we would be committed for 2 years, so it would be just under 800,000.
And what happens after that 2 years?
Then there would have to be a decision whether we would proceed if we would go that way. Yes.
Okay.
So any questions for this witness?
I'll do it for 200,000.
Okay, thank you. Please come forward, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee. Thanks for allowing me to say a few things. For the record, Willard Haley, and I'm a representative representing the 58th District. And I have to say that I was not planning to even attend this hearing. I was walking by and, oh yeah, that's what's going on. So I thought I would come in for a brief moment and just listen, and I had no intention of saying anything. But I just wanted to mention a few things. My legislative assistant utilizes this, I would almost say, daily. She does an excellent job of, and by the way, my compliments to the team of all the IT people, Joy and everybody. They're kind of behind the scenes, but I think what they have is a very usable system. My legislative assistant is probably not your traditional LA. She works extremely hard and does many things over the top. But she keeps track of every single newspaper article that we laminate and send out to constituents on this system. Every phone call, every email that we get of our constituents and the needs that they have, she describes it on this system. She can look back and remind me, oh, you heard from this constituent last year about this subject, and she's always referencing it and telling me what is going on. We get 5 newspapers sent to our office each week. She goes through those newspapers and finds the obituaries and tries to keep the constituent management up to date by notating or removing, however it is done, the constituents that have passed away. It is just a very useful system, and she is very, very knowledgeable of it. And I sometimes think that perhaps not all of the LAs are comfortable with it, and it's kind of their choosing, or not every LA does the same thing. They all have their own things that they're good at and what they do. And I just wanted to comment that I don't see any major difficulties with this. And Representative Cups, I haven't heard of any major complaints myself at all. I just think people need to get in there and experience it like most things and learn how to operate it. And my last comment is this. Every once in a while, our escalator breaks down. And I think, our escalator was very, very good in the past. It worked well. I never smelled it. It never overheated. It wasn't stopped for anything. And what do? We replaced it. We updated it. And now we have difficulties all the time. So my last comment is, if it's not broke, don't change it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Well, I wasn't expecting that. So any questions? All right, Representative Cups.
Yeah, can I steal your LA? Is that feasibly possible?
She's mine, and honestly, she doesn't want to be a dual. She is a single one, and she is busy.
No, I don't want to share with you.
Okay.
I just want to steal it. Yeah.
The answer is no.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Anyone else?
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Anyone else? Please state your name and fill out the witness form.
It's already filled out. My name is Sarah Wood. I'm a constituent from the 4th District that actually got to remain part of the 4th District. I think that we've had great conversations in here. It obviously takes the working relationships that it takes for both of us, as me, constituent, and you guys, writing our laws. I'm pretty sure this is our IT department behind us that's in-state, in-house, where we have the data protected. Since the Patriot Act, there's no such thing as privacy. There's only operational security, which you cannot have if you're outsourcing your data. I think we can all, concur that we've had enough data breaches and that we're trying to save free speech, so I think it'd be a really, really bad idea to use the system. And frankly, we could be using time to be pushing for an executive session on the IP reform that we actually need, because we keep putting stuff in the Constitution that's not so hot, but it's not also okay for them to try to take our initial petition right that we have, like they're trying to do it right now with the SAPA legislation that it took us 8 years to get through. So I think this is a really bad idea. So any questions?
Any questions for this witness?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for being here. Anyone else? We want to give everybody an opportunity to speak. Okay, if there's no other folks, then I'd like to open this up to the membership. Any discussions, any comments, any feelings that anyone has at this time? Representative Van Schoik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seems to me we've got very few members utilizing this system as well as it could be utilized in the first place. And we're keeping data here in-house. We're not farming it out. We're not putting it on the cloud. We're protecting it here. I don't use this system for all the things it's capable of. Basically, I use it to say if someone really is my constituent, maybe what their address is, and that's about it. That's all I really use it for. That's all I really need. I understand other members may need more, and that's fine. But I'm looking at our staff here. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate that so very much. Are we into the executive session part of this, or do you want to?
Yeah, it's not a bill, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I want to make a motion
okay.
that the current House Constituent Management software system is sufficient, and any updates or improvements shall be continued to be conducted internally by our House Information Systems for a period of at least 2 years.
Oh, well, any discussion on that? Representative Cups.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative. I'm going to be honest, as the sub-appropriations chairman of budget, I got a lot of calls about this that I was not expecting from people that I was not expecting calls from. I do know that we have some members that use the system, the off-site system, that are happy with that. I'm not trying to discredit them. The one thing that I want to say, and I am going to say it publicly, and people can say whatever they want to about that. I do not believe that the system that is proposed is malicious currently. I don't. I do not believe that the people that operate it have malicious intent. I believe they're probably for profit. I believe that they probably try to provide as good of a user service as possible, the same way that a cell phone company tries to provide as good a service for their users as possible, so those people will continue to subscribe and utilize them as opposed to something else. I do not believe that our Speaker of the House is a member of the deep state or whatever he has been, whatever it's, I don't believe that. And I want to go on record as saying that. As the sub-appropriations chairman, I am very, very concerned at how this went about. You know, when this first got brought to my attention, it was something that I then called our budget chairman, Representative Smith and our budget vice chairman, Representative Deaton, and asked them like, hey, is this something that was brought to you that I didn't know about? Because it was not brought to me as the sub-appropriations chairman. It wasn't. And does that mean it's a bad system? No. Does that mean that it is a malicious system? No. Does that mean that it was vetted? Also no. But that's why we're here. And so I really think when it comes to an item of, so the other thing you have to remember is this is my 5th year here. I came in on a special election. And I don't want to belabor this, but this is kind of important for us as a committee in other things we think about and contemplate as well. It's definitely important for me as the sub-appropriations chairman of General Admin, and I try to keep that context, is there are things that members of the Senate tell me that it used to work this way in the House. And you're like, oh, did it work that way in the 1970s and the 1980s? And they're like, no, it worked that way in 2016. But because of term limits, when something changes, it only takes 2 or 3 years before that becomes the forever norm. It's like, why do we do this way? Why is this structured this way? Well, it's because it happened, and then with the transition, I will not be the general admin sub-approps chairman in a couple years, and so then, well, this is the system we use. I actually, to bring this full circle, I actually think that's the reason that we don't have nearly the utilization out of our current system that we could, is just because we have such high turnover with term limits that we don't have that institutional usage that maybe used to exist prior to the last 15, 20 years. With that said, I say all that to say this would most likely, we have to understand the gravity of this. This would most likely not be a 2-year decision. This would most likely probably be a 40-year decision or a 50-year decision where we were to, how many vendors do we currently contract where it's like, well, they've been handling that for us for how many years? That's just the way it works. And so I'm not against, I am a Republican. I may be too much of a Republican some days because I'm not against having people that are professionals handle, whether it be in defense, whether it be, in numerous infrastructure, having people that are involved in that business, that are professionals and know their trade, handle stuff for government, because historically, government is about the worst person you can pick to do something. But in this instance, what I am most concerned about is that it was not vetted through the budget process, through the channels that everything else that ends up becoming a potential 30 or 40-year investment has to go through. Because that's where we get to ask the questions about some of the data concerns. That's where we get to ask the questions about whether or not there are things. I don't know whether this is something that if we were to subscribe to this service that we could tailor it to, that we could change it, or if it's just, I don't know any of that stuff. But that's where we get to ask those questions. And this did not go through those channels. And through that, at this time, I am in favor of Representative Van Schoik's proposal. I say we try to use the system we have. If we need to tweak it a little bit, let's do it. And that would potentially give us time. If there are private entities that would like to propose something to us, bring it to us. Bring it before my general admin's sub-appropriations committee. Let us ask some hard questions and determine whether it's a smart usage of taxpayer dollars. And without going through those processes, I don't think we should do anything that spends that amount of taxpayer money, not for 2 years, but probably for 30 or 40. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Cups, for your comments. I do want to also say that I've received a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls about this since it hit the news in St. Louis and really across the state. and on Facebook and everywhere else. But Representative Cups, to address what you said about the term limits, and I think this is where many of us have an advantage because we have LAs that have been here for a long, long, long time. So they were able to see the good and the bad. And I think what they've been able to find out with this current system we have right now, it's only 9 months old. And being able to see that and see the improvements that have been made from that, from the system we had before, and really to speak to what Bev has said earlier, because she has been here longer than most all of us. But I think that it does go to that point. To your also point about your professionals, and I think that we've got the most professional staff of IT people that money can buy. These folks that are sitting over here, I'm convinced, could go somewhere else in the private sector and make a whole lot more money than they do here. They are public servants, just like we are public servants. And I think it's, and I appreciate what you do. And I know that you're here late at night, many times updating the system when we are, out of respect to us that are in the House in what we do. But I also have real concerns about security. And I think that that's something that we have. And I'm in favor of Representative Van Sloyk's motion.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Representative McGaugh.
Thank you. My comment is, I agree with my reps. Representative Cups brought up the whole problem with the procurement process. Did we subvert that? And Representative Griffith brings up that the LAs are who use it, and the LAs need to be comfortable with it, and many are doing a good job. My question, and I'm not sure who it's to, and it could be to Dana, is for the reps who've been contacting us that do want to enter into a contract with something like this, can they use their member expense account to do so?
This is actually a question that's come up, and I actually would probably defer somewhat to Danielle and to my administration director, but our practice is not to let members double dip and be reimbursed twice for something that's, for instance, if this would be something the members would want to purchase, if we're offering a compatible or comparable product in-house, we would not reimburse for that. But they could use private funds to pay for a subscription if they would choose to do that.
So your answer is that it's already being provided, so it would be considering double dipping if they paid for something that was similar to what they get for free.
Right, and that would be, we currently have, I'm going to use MailChimp because members will routinely want to be reimbursed for a MailChimp subscription, but we provide in-house Outlook, and so we don't allow that.
You don't reimburse for MailChimp?
We do not.
Didn't know that, but I don't use it, so
Yeah.
I guess that's why I didn't know. We utilize what you have and have been trained by Terry, and it works well for us. So thanks for that answer. I think that the people that have contacted me have utilized it, and they see where it works for them, and that's the difference. We all come from various districts that what works for the St. Louis representatives don't usually work for rural Carroll County, so I probably wouldn't have the need, but I just wanted to make sure that if someone that sits in a chair next to me wants it, they could still get it, but you're suggesting that they use their own funds, whether it be campaign funds or their personal funds.
Yes, that's correct. And when I sat through a presentation of this program back in June, I was told that it was not available for members to purchase individually because I asked that question at that time. However, that may have changed. So,
thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? Okay. You have something else?
Questions, I would like to second his motion.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a motion from Representative Van Schoik to currently use the current system with updates, et cetera, for at least 2 years. Okay, and you're seconding that, Representative Griffith? Okay. All those in favor, would you say aye? Aye. Any opposed? It looks like the motion is carried, so thank you, Representative Van Schoik. Is there any other business that we need to conduct at this time for the committee? Representative Cups.
Apparently, we need to have the escalator looked at.
That is beyond my purview. So if there's no other business, this hearing is adjourned.